Hashtag AI Tech News, June 27, 2026. GPT 5.6 just hit a speed bump. OpenAI's rolling back its rollout after government pressure, while Anthropic gets the green light from Trump's team. Plus, Europe's had enough and is building its own AI. 5 stories breaking right now, let's go. OpenAI limits GPT 5.6 rollout after government request, says restrictions shouldn't be the norm. OpenAI just hit pause on rolling out GPT 5.6, and the reason why reveals a fundamental tension that's about to define the entire AI industry. A government request led them to restrict access to their latest model, and they're publicly pushing back, arguing that this kind of gatekeeping shouldn't become standard practice. This matters because we're watching a critical moment where governments worldwide are trying to figure out how to regulate AI, and companies are drawing lines about what they will and won't accept. Here's the technical reality: GPT 5.6 represents a significant leap in capability, which is exactly why governments are interested in controlling its distribution. When AI models become more powerful, they can do more things, both good and bad, and regulators understandably want oversight. But OpenAI's argument cuts deeper than just business frustration. They're saying that restricting access to their best tools actually weakens cybersecurity, limits innovation for developers and enterprises, and puts global partners at a disadvantage. It's a legitimate point that highlights how government control could have unintended consequences. What we're really seeing is a preview of coming battles over AI governance. Will governments be able to demand access restrictions on new models? Can companies refuse without facing penalties? And most importantly, who decides what's safe enough to release? OpenAI's public stance suggests they're willing to challenge these requests, but they're also complying, at least for now. This sets a precedent that could shape whether AI development happens openly or gets increasingly locked down by regulatory pressure. The next few years will determine whether innovation thrives or gets strangled by bureaucracy. Why everyone from OpenAI to SpaceX is building their own chips and turning up the heat on NVIDIA. NVIDIA's iron grip on the AI chip market is finally loosening, and it's happening faster than anyone expected. OpenAI just announced Jalapeno, a custom inference chip built with Broadcom, joining an increasingly crowded field of tech giants who've decided they're done paying premium prices to a single supplier. Google's been doing this for years with their TPUs, Apple's got their neural engines, and now even SpaceX is getting in on the action. This isn't just corporate shopping around, this is a fundamental shift in how the industry operates. Here's why this matters: for nearly a decade, NVIDIA basically owned the AI infrastructure space. If you wanted to train or run large language models, you needed their GPUs, and they knew it. Companies had no choice but to accept whatever prices NVIDIA set, which meant massive capital expenditures just to stay competitive. But custom chips changed the equation entirely. These companies are building silicon specifically optimized for their own workloads, which means better performance per dollar and, crucially, independence from any single vendor's roadmap or pricing decisions. The technical reality is that most AI companies don't actually need NVIDIA's full-featured, expensive chips for everything they do. Inference running already trained models is fundamentally different from training, and it doesn't require the same raw power. That's where Jalapeno comes in. It's purpose-built for inference at scale, which is where OpenAI actually makes money. This trend will only accelerate as more companies realize they can save billions by controlling their own silicon destiny, and that's going to force NVIDIA to compete on innovation rather than monopoly power. OpenAI unveils GPT 5.6 Sol, Terra and Luna models, but only accessible to limited preview partners for now, per US Gov. OpenAI just dropped 3 new AI models in one announcement, and the strategy behind it tells you everything about where the AI industry is heading right now. The GPT 5.6 family, Sol, Terra, and Luna, represents a fundamental shift from building one model to fit everyone, to building specialized tools for specific jobs. Sol tackles the hardest problems like complex coding and security research, Terra handles the high-volume business grind like customer support and document analysis, and Luna is your speed demon for everyday tasks. This isn't just a product refresh, it's OpenAI saying the era of one-size-fits-all AI is over. What makes this announcement particularly significant is that these models are only available to limited preview partners right now, which means OpenAI is being extremely careful about how it rolls this out. Sol and Terra are apparently crushing benchmarks, setting new records in performance, while Luna manages to stay competitive with the previous generation despite being positioned as the fastest and cheapest option. That's the real engineering flex here. They're not sacrificing capability for speed or cost, they're finding ways to do both simultaneously. The broader implication is that we're entering an era where AI deployment becomes more about matching the right tool to the right problem rather than throwing the biggest model at everything. For businesses, this could mean dramatically lower costs by using Luna for routine work while reserving the expensive firepower of Sol for genuinely difficult challenges. For OpenAI, it's a way to maintain dominance by making their ecosystem stickier and more integrated into how companies actually operate. The limited preview approach also gives them time to stress test these models in real-world conditions before a wider release, which frankly, is the responsible move given how much these systems now power critical infrastructure. Trump administration allows Anthropic to release Mythos to select U.S. organizations. The AI arms race just got a major plot twist. After weeks of intense negotiations with the White House, Anthropic has finally secured permission to release Mythos, its most powerful AI model, to a carefully vetted group of American companies and government agencies. This isn't just another model update, it's a watershed moment that reveals how deeply intertwined AI development has become with national security politics. Here's what makes this significant. Mythos represents a genuine leap forward in AI capabilities, and the fact that it was restricted in the first place tells you everything about how seriously Washington is taking artificial intelligence competition. The negotiations weren't casual, they involved real back and forth about safety protocols, data handling, and how this technology could be deployed. By granting selective access rather than an outright ban, the administration is essentially saying, we trust this company enough to let them proceed, but we're watching closely and controlling who gets to use it. The broader implications are fascinating. We're entering an era where AI development isn't purely a market-driven competition anymore. Government approval has become a gatekeeping mechanism, which could reshape how companies innovate and compete. For the selected organizations getting access to Mythos, this is a massive advantage. They'll have cutting-edge capabilities their competitors can't touch. But for the tech industry overall, it raises uncomfortable questions about innovation speed and whether regulatory oversight will become a bottleneck that slows American AI development relative to other countries. The real story here isn't just about one model getting released, it's about who gets to decide what AI capabilities exist and when. Europe is fed up and wants its own AI. Europe's got a problem, and it's not a new one. While American and Chinese companies have been dominating the artificial intelligence race for years, the continent has been watching from the sidelines, and frankly, they're tired of it. The European Union is now seriously pushing to develop its own world-class AI models, and here's the wild part, they might actually have a shot, thanks of all things to Donald Trump's return to American politics. Let's be clear about the technical reality first. Building a top-tier large language model requires massive computing infrastructure, billions in funding, and years of research expertise. Europe has struggled to compete on this front because their tech companies are fragmented across different countries, their regulatory environment is notoriously strict, and they've historically invested less in AI infrastructure compared to Silicon Valley. But desperation breeds innovation, and the EU is finally consolidating resources and backing homegrown champions. The real advantage, though? Trump's protectionist policies and potential restrictions on exporting American AI technology have created an opening. European companies and governments see an opportunity to build something independent before they get locked out entirely. This matters more than you might think. An AI landscape dominated entirely by American and Chinese players means Europe loses strategic autonomy, economic opportunity, and control over how these systems are deployed within their borders. If Europe can successfully develop competitive models, it shifts the global power dynamic and gives them leverage in setting international AI standards. It's not just about technology anymore, it's about geopolitical independence in an AI-driven world. Thanks for staying updated with Neural Brief. Subscribe, hit that like button, and enable notifications so you never miss tomorrow's biggest AI breakthroughs. See you next time.